Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are watching The African Queen. This movie was released in 1951. It stars Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn as Charlie Allnutt and Rose Sayre. It is right at an hour and 45 minutes long, and is a adventure. There's a little bit of comedy in it, but it's mostly an adventure film. This one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this, but you have several. I mean, obviously you have several other actors, but Humphrey Bogart, Katharine Hepburn are the two main ones. Everybody else you see probably less than 5 minutes in the entire course of the film. So it is mostly just those two for 90% of this movie. It starts out with Rose Sayre and her brother Samuel in Africa. Samuel is a preacher, a minister, and he's a minister of the English church, and he's leading a group of African people in like a tribe, a village, in hymns. They're all singing. And as this going on, you have Humphrey Bogart pulling up in a little steamboat, which is actually the titular character in this. The boat is the African Queen. So he's pulling up in the African Queen. He comes in to meet the Sayers, talk to them, deliver mail, deliver supplies, whatever, news, whatever's going on. And he talks to them, sits down, has dinner with them. He's kind of making jokes during this whole thing. He's kind of vulgar. He's like stomach's grumbling. He's making jokes about that, and they're kind of just trying to tolerate him for the most part. They're a little more prim and proper, and he's kind of just this. He's a mechanic. He's a mechanic from Canada, is who his character. So he's kind of just this, rough guy. But right before he leaves, he makes the comment that war has broken out, that the British and the Germans are fighting. This is the start of World War II, because this is in this is part of World War II. It's in 1914. He asks the Sayers if they want to go with him to get out of the area, because the Germans are going around a bunch of places trying to take over, and they say they're going to stay. So he leaves because he says, I've got a bunch of stuff on the African Queen that they might want. So I'm going to leave. I'm going to get out of here and go back. He's going to the mine where he works, is what he makes the comment of. So he goes. Almost instantly afterwards, the German soldiers show up and burn the village to the ground. They take all of the villagers off to basically be forced into war, into fighting. And during this whole thing, Samuel, the brother, stands up to the German soldiers and gets hit in the face with a rifle. He comes down with a fever and dies. Pretty quick. That's the next scene, basically. He's delirious, and then the next scene is him with a fever in bed, and Rose is taking care of him, Katharine Hepburn's character. And he dies right there. Pretty quickly after that, Charlie comes back because he's gone to the mine where he was working. It's been, destroyed basically by the Germans. So he comes back. He finds Rose there by herself. Learns that her brother has died, and he helps her bury him. And then they both get on the boat and leave, so they can stay away from the Germans. During their short travels, she tries to convince Um, Charlie's talking about the war. He says the British can't get to where they are because there's a ship blocking a lake, a large lake. There's a large German ship blocking a lake in between them and the British. So Rose gets this crazy idea to turn the African Queen, which is this little wooden steamboat, 30-foot long is what he says it is, I believe. It's a 30-foot long boat, so a little tiny thing, into a torpedo boat. They're going to, she asks Charlie if he knows how to make one, and persuades him to go along with it. He's very reluctant, but she persuades him by basically saying that he doesn't care enough about his country and kind of insulting his manhood. So that whole thing happens. They end up going down the river. They have some spats along the way. At one point, they go through rapids. Rose gets very excited. She thinks it's exhilarating. She starts steering the boat at one point, too. He kind of lets her steer it. He takes care of the engine. They come across the German fort where they get shot at by the Germans. They barely make it out. They go into some more rapids. And they end up kissing at one point, like embracing and kissing each other, which apparently was a problem in the 1950s when this came out. In 1951, that was a problem in movies because the censors didn't like it. Can't imagine what they would think about today with some movies that end up coming out, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, they end up breaking a propeller on the boat, breaking the shaft. They have to fix the propeller, weld a new propeller together. They make a quick forge and do a bunch of that kind of stuff. So they're doing a bunch of stuff. They also end up getting stuck in reeds and mud. And at this point, Charlie has a fever. He passes out before Rose can go to sleep, or to basically do the same, rest. She says a prayer while they're sleeping. The rain comes, it lifts the boat, and it frees them. It gets them to the lake where they were trying to get to, because they were only like one of the before it shows the rain. It zooms out, and you can see the boat is like a few hundred feet from the lake. They just can't see it through all the reeds. But anyway, now they've made it to the lake. They see the Luis is the German ship, Congolin Luis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but they see the Luis going through, like circling the lake, and over the next couple days they build their torpedoes. They install them in the boat, and then at night, one night they decide they're going to ram the boat. They're going to ram the Luis with the African Queen. But a storm happens at the same night and ends up sinking the African Queen in the lake. Charlie's captured, interrogated by British officers, or German officers, sorry. He's interrogated by the Germans. He doesn't really care anymore. He thinks that, at this point, him and Rose have fallen in love, talked about, being together, and he doesn't really care. He thinks she's drowned. He doesn't know where she is, so he's just like, whatever, I don't care. He gets sentenced to hanging for spying, for being a British spy. Right at that moment, of course, Rose is brought to the boat with some more people. She's brought on board, and she goes up, and he never tells the Germans, Charlie never tells the Germans anything. He's just like, I was just fishing, whatever. He refuses basically to talk. She comes up and thinking kind of the same thing, that nothing's ever going to happen. They can't get out of this. She just tells them that they were planning to sink the boat. They were going to sink the Luis. And goes about how, tells them how they built the torpedoes and everything else. And the Germans don't like this either, so they sentence her to hanging too, both as British spies. So you've got they both go down to basically be executed that second, and Rose or they're both about to be hung. Charlie asks the captain to marry him and Rose, so because it'll make the lady happy, is what he says, and the captain he obliges, even though he's gonna hang him anyway. He obliges, and one of the quotes that's kind of funny in this is at the very end. I thought this was kind of comical. He says, "By the authority vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. Proceed with the execution." That's it. As they're getting the noose put around their neck, and at that moment, the Luis is starts shaking. You hear an explosion, and you've realized, because they've been shooting back and forth, they've been showing the African Queen in the water and upside down in the water, and the Luis coming towards it at this point, and you realize the Luis has hit the African Queen, and is sinking because of the torpedoes. The Germans are throwing stuff overboard, and Charlie and Rose end up escaping and swimming to shore. The last scene is them swimming away. And that's it. That's the movie. So, it's a fun movie. Like I said, it's about an hour and 40. It's right at an hour and 45 minutes. And it's a nice adventure movie. It's not crazy complicated. There's nothing crazy that goes on in it. It's just fun. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in it, but a few things that I thought were interesting. Humphrey Bogart actually won an Oscar for this movie. That was the only Oscar, was the only award it actually won. It was nominated for 4 Oscars and 2 British Academy of Film Awards. It did not win any of those, except for, like I said, Humphrey Bogart as Best Actor. And that means he was also, I think it said, the last person born in the 1800s. Yeah, the last person born in the 1800s to win a leading role in an Oscar for a leading role, which is kind of interesting. It did pretty well as far as critics go, and sales, box office sales. There were a few things. This was about half filmed in the UK and about half filmed in Africa. Actually, in Africa, there was several scenes. One of the first scenes, Katharine Hepburn was sick almost the entire time. They had to have a bucket next to her, they said, to make sure that she could make it through the scene as they were filming. Humphrey Bogart and the director, John Huston, did not get sick. They were 2 of the only people who didn't get sick on the whole filming. And the reason they say they didn't get sick is because they basically lived on whiskey. Bogart actually had a quote later saying, "All I ate was baked beans, canned asparagus, and Scotch whiskey. Whenever a fly bit Huston or me, it dropped dead." So I thought that was comical. That's something fun that you don't think about, because there's a lot of diseases especially in the 50s, with other countries. There's a lot of diseases in the UK and the America in the 50s. So, but I thought that was interesting. There was a lot of differences from this. This is based on a book written by C.S. Forrester. There's a lot of differences, obviously, from the book. In the book, there's a version of the book where there's 2 versions of the book. One that was released in the UK and one that was released in America. One of those, a British ship sinks, the Luis, and sorry, Charlie and Rose watch from the shore. Um, and one of them, they warn the British and they, do that. And another one, they're captured. They kind of did an in between for this. They did add the wedding, the marriage, to get past movie censors because movie censors didn't like that they were living together on a boat and things like that. So if they wanted them to end up together, they had to marry them basically. Um, so that was, one of those that I thought was interesting as well. Um, I did. There was one in here that I thought was interesting as well. Um, Me being a Disney adult, I thought this was interesting that the African Queen was partially what inspired the boats for the Jungle Cruise, or inspired the Jungle Cruise at Disneyland. So apparently, Harper Goff talked about that a lot of times when he was referenced it several times when he was building that attraction or talking about that attraction. So that's something that was interesting, I thought. But yeah, that is the African Queen, all about a boat. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. I thought this movie was pretty good. Um, it was a lot of it was fun to watch because it's just kind of a adventure movie. There's nothing really to it. There's no thinking really with it. I do like movies where you have to think, but you know, psychological thrillers, things like that at times too. But this one, it's kind of just there. They're just kind of on an adventure. So it was something different, something fun to watch. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Next week, we are talking about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf from 1966. So watch that and come and comment, enjoy with me. Yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll talk to you guys next week.